Guys, hi Michelle. So basically, I'm in a philosophy class right now, and they have us reading children's book and then like analyzing it philosophically. So I'm gonna read one to you and then tell you what I think is the philosophical meaning. Okay, so this is Harold and the Purple Crayon. Also, this is me practicing my reading out loud skills. Harold and the Purple Crayon by Johnson, Crockett Johnson. So, one evening, after thinking it over for some time, Harold decided to go for a walk in the moonlight. There wasn't any moon, and Harold needed a moon for a walk in the moonlight, and he needed something to walk on. He made a long straight path so he wouldn't get lost, and he set off on his walk, taking his big purple crayon with him. But he didn't seem to be getting anywhere on the long straight path, so he left the path for a shortcut across a field, and the moon went with him. The shortcut led right to where Harold thought a forest ought to be. He didn't want to get lost in the woods, so he made a very small forest with just one tree in it. It turned out to be an apple tree. The apples would be very tasty, Harold thought, when they got red. So he put a frightening dragon under the tree to guard the apples. It was a terribly frightening dragon. It even frightened Harold. He backed away. His hand holding the purple crayon shook. Suddenly, he realized what was happening. But by then, Harold was over his head in an ocean. He came up thinking fast, and in no time, he was climbing aboard a trim little boat. He quickly set sail, and the moon sailed along with him. After he had sailed long enough, Harold made land without much trouble. He stepped ashore on the beach, wondering where he was. The sandy beach reminded Harold of picnic, and the thought of picnics made him hungry. So he laid out a nice, simple picnic lunch. There was nothing but pie, but there were all 9 kinds of pie that Harold liked best. When Harold finished his picnic, there was quite a lot left. He hated to see so much delicious pie go to waste. So Harold left a very hungry moose and a deserving porcupine to finish it up. And off he went, looking for a hill to climb to see where he was. Harold knew that the higher up he went, the farther he could see. So he decided to make the hill into a mountain. If he went high enough, he thought, he could see the window of his bedroom. He was tired and he felt he ought to be getting to bed. He hoped he could see his bedroom window on the top of the mountain. But as he looked down over the other side, he slipped. And there wasn't any other side of the mountain. He was falling in thin air. But luckily, he kept his wits and his purple crayon. He made a balloon and he grabbed onto it. And he made a basket under the balloon. big enough to stand in. He had a fine view from the balloon, but he couldn't see his window. He couldn't even see a house. So he made a house with windows, and he landed the balloon on the grass in the front yard. None of the windows was his window. He tried to think where his window ought to be. He made some more windows. He made a big building full of windows. He made lots of buildings full of windows. He made a whole city full of windows. But none of the windows was his window. He couldn't think where it might be. He decided to ask a policeman. The policeman pointed the way. Harold was going anyways. But Harold thanked him. And he walked along with the moon, wishing he was in his room and in bed. Then suddenly, Harold remembered. He remembered where his bedroom window was when there was a moon. It was always right around the moon. And then Harold made his bed. He got in it and he drew up the covers. The purple crayon dropped on the floor and Harold dropped off to sleep. The end. So that was the purple crayon, Harold and the purple crayon. I think in a philosophical level, well, I'm thinking Harold, if we look in the first page here, it's a bit messy, right? The crayon on the pages, and it could be an artistic taste, but it could also be, this is the mindset of Harold, you know, like Harold's in this messy kind of state of mind, you know, and we can see as he goes throughout the book, he goes on a straight path. He never looks back, or at least not for long. He goes back to like drawing the apple tree and things like that, you know, but he's always moving forward. And by the end of the story, we see he gets to bed finally, and it's no longer a chaotic mind as it was in the beginning of the story, you know, where he is all confused. He was more at peace by the end of the story. So I think really what the story is trying to portray is like the mind of a child and how it's very hectic, although it may not seem like it, because it's thought to not be complex because it is the mind of a child. But I think in actuality, a child's mind is the most complex place because they have so much imagination, like we saw when he had the apple tree with the dragon. He got scared of his own imagination, you know, and he ended up almost drowning. But he saved himself, thankfully. But we can see how a child's mind can create obstacles in itself, even if it will save itself in the end. And then he got kind of lost in his own mind too here when he was building the multiple windows and buildings. He couldn't find his way home, but eventually, after, you know, he found an authoritarian figure, and after finding that, you know, I think it gave him a little bit more direction. And I feel like that could be us as teachers, giving the direction to our students and just leading them in a little crystal clear, like he said, he's like, I knew like I was going that way anyways, you know, but he still followed the direction of the policeman because, you know, that's the adult figure, but he knew he needed to do that. So we're just helping them as the adult figure to continue on into the right path. And then, you know, he eventually gets back home and he's finally able to rest and be at peace. So I think that's the overall story of Harold and the Purple Crayon. I could be wrong, but that's my interpretation.
Yeah. Okay.